Hey Wargamers, and welcome to the Epic Hobby. Today I'm going to be experimenting with value painting while I work on Greyscales for my Guild Ball Fisherman team. Value painting is a process where you underpaint the entire model with basically shades of black and white and gray in order to really determine where you want your shadows and highlights before you start applying color. I initially primed this model completely with Vallejo black surface primer, and then use Vallejo white surface primer from above to give it a zenithal highlight and just give me some basic detailing to begin working with. I'm using some thinned black to make his boots a little darker, and it went on a little bit too heavily, so I'm going to use just an old brush and wipe it away before it dries. Now I'm mixing just a little bit of pure water into the black paint so that it's a little bit thinner and goes on as more of a glaze, because what I'm trying to do here is actually just tint some areas rather than painting them black. You can see here I'm applying the black to the back of his boots where they're really not visible, and the underside of the folds of the fabric on his boots. There's a lot of texture to the net across his back, and this presents a little bit of a problem because it's kind of hard to get nice smooth fades when there's just so much texture around. So what I'm doing here is just kind of working around it and really tinting just the large flat areas of the fabric. The parts that are within the net, I'm going to assume a little bit of wash will kind of carry that for me later. Let's hope that works out. Here I'm using the black paint to just sort of tone down the brightness of some areas. Specifically in this case, there's sort of some fish scale type pattern here. And because of where it is and the fact that it's just a certain piece of clothing that I don't really want to spend a lot of time detailing, I'm toning it down so it sort of ends up blending into the background of the model. Here I'm just accenting the underside of the spear he's carrying so the shadows are deeper. I found the transition to the black paint was just a little too stark in some areas, so I'm going to add an intermediate step using Iron Hull Grey. Basically, I'm using this to just add a transition between the black areas and the existing primer. The Iron Hull Grey alone is fairly dark and matches a lot of the black areas I've already done, so I'm going to mix a little bit of Moro white in just to lighten it up, and this will give me a much nicer transitional shade. Now you can really see as I apply it to the boots that this mix of the Iron Hull Grey and pure white is doing a lot better job of making a transition between the primer and the black shadows. Now I'm going to switch over to straight Murrow White for some pure highlights. I'm going to be using this to draw attention to the sharpest details and places I want the most visual focus, which will include his head and hands. You can see as I start to add highlights to his nose and eyebrows that it really makes his face stand out a lot more and it looks much more complete. With the Murrow White done, I'm going to go one step further and use a pure titanium white heavy body acrylic to add some really stark white highlights. Murrow White is pretty bright, but titanium white is the brightest paint you can possibly get. However, because it's a heavy body paint, it kind of comes out about the consistency of toothpaste, and it does need to be thinned down for miniature use. Because I'm using this as an extreme highlight, I can basically use the areas I've already highlighted as a guide to let me know where it has to be driven. I'm applying a little bit to his beard now because when I do get around to painting that detail, I want it to be lighter than the remainder of his head. I'm using a tiny bit of the titanium white here now, just to add some shiny spots to the fish hooks on the back of his cloak. This will give him a little bit of a metallic sheen, because I don't want to use true metallic metals on this model. Right, at this point the value painting is done and I'm really happy with the results. When it's complete, value painting should basically look like a black and white photograph of the miniature, and I really think I've achieved that here. In the next video, I'm going to be using a combination of washes, glazes, and thin down paint to add color to these areas without trying to lose any of the shading that the value painting has provided. Thanks for watching, and until next time, do something epic.